It's strange how the real endings don't start with shouting. Sometimes you know a marriage is over not because anyone says the words, but because you notice the way the house sounds at 7 in the morning. The way you can hear the fridge hum instead of a voice across the countertop. The coffee machine sputters, and there's only one mug on the table. Yours still warm. Her side of the table is empty but for a napkin pressed flat, as if expecting something that isn't coming. And the worst part is that the silence doesn't feel sudden. It feels earned. Like the house had been trying to tell you something for months, but you were too loyal, too tired, or too afraid to translate it. But that's not where it started. Not for me. For almost a decade, Amanda and I measured our lives in small habits and easy laughter. Mornings began with the rattle of spoons and her singing off-key in the kitchen, usually some 90s song stuck in her head. We swapped grocery lists like trading cards, concocted elaborate pranks to spring on each other. A rubber snake in the mailbox, chili powder in the toothpaste, a running war that made our friends roll their eyes. Every weekday, Amanda texted me some tiny update before lunch. Sometimes about her new boss. Sometimes just a saw the funniest dog, with an attached photo of a mutt in rain boots. Most of our romance was ordinary, but it suited me. Suited us. Amanda was softer than me. Quick to hug, quicker to make peace. I'm the type who keeps his poker face even when the dog dies. I notice things before I understand them. It's a skill you pick up working loss prevention. Small, out-of-place details that add up to a story. A person who pauses half a second too long before answering. A receipt folded twice instead of once. A phone turned face down when it has never been turned face down before. That's why, when the first real crack appeared, I didn't panic. I noticed. It happened on a Tuesday night. Fluorescent lights buzzing over dusty shelves at Miller's Hardware. I was balancing a box of drywall anchors when Dave, old friend from the force, sidled up beside me and shifted his weight. Cleared his throat. "Hey, Steve. Sorry, awkward, but you got a minute?" There are some tones you recognize before the words arrive. That was one of them. We ducked by the paint aisle, away from curious ears. Dave kept his voice low. "This is probably nothing, but a week back I saw Amanda. Lunch hour maybe. She was holding hands, with someone. Wasn't you?" I almost waved, but honestly, I thought it was a little weird. He tripped over the words, like he expected me to throw a punch. Instead, I just breathed. "Appreciate you saying something, Dave. Nothing more." He looked relieved, then worse, like my calm made the whole thing heavier. That night, I drove home with the window down, letting the streetlights flicker across my hands on the wheel. Maybe Dave was mistaken. Amanda had a lot of friends, coworkers, people I didn't know well. Besides, if you trust someone, you trust them through the noise. That's what I told myself. Still, I watched a little closer. And if stories like these keep you listening, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It really helps me out and makes it possible to keep bringing you stories where the truth comes out, one detail at a time. The next morning, Amanda was up before me, scrambling eggs like nothing was out of place. She smiled and tapped my wrist, the same gold band glinting in the early sunlight. I told myself it was nothing, but after Dave said what he said, ordinary things didn't feel ordinary anymore. The way Amanda hummed while cooking. The way she kept her phone near the toaster instead of the coffee maker. The way she asked if I had plans after work before she asked how I'd slept. None of it meant anything by itself. That was the problem. A betrayal doesn't usually announce itself. It hides inside things that can be explained away. But then, for the first time in forever, she brought home takeout instead of cooking. "Rough day, babe," she said, tone breezy. Nobody wanted to cook at the office, so I picked up Ty on the way. She set the cartons on the counter, shrugged off her coat, and handed me a fortune cookie like it was a present. I watched the way she moved around the kitchen, just a second faster, a little less sure. She started telling a story about a coworker's new puppy, but the details didn't land right. I caught myself cataloging the small holes in her story, the missing names, the hesitation before she said where lunch had been. Still, I let it go. People have off days. I remembered Dave's awkwardness and tried not to punish Amanda for a thing I didn't even believe yet. That night, Amanda scrolled through her phone on the couch, legs tucked beneath her. She looked up, laughing at something, but as I settled in beside her, she casually flipped the screen over. Not in a rush, just a tiny tilt. But I noticed. I cracked a joke. Watching cat videos again. She turned her smile to me, all gentle affection. You caught me. Everyone needs a mindless distraction now and then. I didn't push. We watched a sitcom. I laughed in the right places. I fell asleep thinking about drywall anchors, not Amanda's phone. At least I tried to. Over the next few days, I pressed a little. Harmless questions. How was lunch? I said, one night as she came home a bit later than usual. She didn't miss a beat. Oh, same as always. Microwave burritos. Susan brought in leftover cupcakes, so that made up for it. Her eyes flicked to mine, maybe assessing whether I bought it. I smiled, didn't let on. Amanda always could talk her way through a locked door. That was one of the things I loved about her. Later, it became one of the things I feared. The following Saturday, I was rummaging for car keys in her purse. Hers and mine were on the same ring these days, when my thumb brushed something new. Tucked behind her familiar plastic tags, an ancient house key, was a thick gold key. Not a car key. Not our spare either. It had weight to it. A kind of expensive, deliberate shine. Not the kind of key you forget you have. I held it up in the doorway. Hey, what's this from? Amanda barely missed a step. She rolled her eyes and grinned, coming over to pluck it out of my fingers. That's the new office key, remember? They changed the locks last month, and Brenda was supposed to return the old set, but she flaked. So now I've got this monster. Her tone was reassuring, casual. Her thumb never left the key head, hiding a faint engraving. For a second, I wanted to believe her. Wanting to believe someone can make you stupid. I nodded, let her drop it back into her purse. But the image stuck. I could visualize the way it caught the light, how it didn't match the others. Something about it felt weighted, private. Days blurred. Amanda seemed more attentive, if anything, bringing me coffee into my work shed. She'd linger, straightening a jacket collar, fingers light but darting, like she was checking off a list. After dinner, I saw her glance at the wall clock, then her phone. I noticed, too, the way a new name, Jen, began lighting up her notifications, even in the middle of the night. At first, I felt foolish for noticing. Then I felt worse for pretending not to. I tried to ignore the gnawing in my stomach, telling myself she was just busy. Some evenings, Amanda was almost too sweet in bed, tracing circles on my back, pressing close, but keeping her eyes pinned to the ceiling. Once, she slipped her phone under her pillow, instead of leaving it on the charger in the kitchen like always. I teased her gently about coddling her electronics. She laughed, the sound just a shade brittle. Guilty. Sorry, force of habit, I guess. Pulled the phone back out, set it by the door. Quick smile. Crisis managed. That was when I started noticing how often she managed crises, before I even knew one existed. I thought about Dave's worried expression at the hardware store, and tried to let it go. Still, little things began adding up. Amanda started declining invitations she used to love, her mother's birthday dinner, her cousin's graduation. She came home with little gifts, scented candles, a tiny plant for my windowsill. Each time she apologized for how crazy work is getting, voice light, but her eyes never quite found mine. I offered to help with her stress, suggesting we could tackle some of her load together. Amanda would pat my hand, half laugh. No, hun, it's complicated HR nonsense. You'd be bored out of your mind. It'll settle next week, promise. Next week became the week after. Then the week after that. I told myself this is what modern marriage looks like. Two people coping with busy seasons. But Amanda no longer asked about my coworkers by name. She stopped helping track bills, deflecting when I brought up our expense spreadsheet. I'm just so tired, Steve. You're the numbers guy anyway. Sometimes, when I mentioned our upcoming security audit at work, something that used to spark her curiosity, she'd give a tight smile, eyes flicking sideways, as if measuring whether she needed to worry. At the time, I didn't understand why a security audit would make my wife nervous. Later, I understood exactly why. One night, propped against the kitchen counter, I pushed to borrow her old laptop to check something. She fetched it but settled in with the screen balanced on her knees. Go for it, what's up, she said, not offering to hand it over. I waited for her to move. She didn't. Thought I'd check our travel folder for that hotel thing, I said, careful. She gave a sweet, apologetic smile. Oh, actually, I think I wiped all those planning docs. Work's been messy, sorry. Try my phone if you want. The laptop snapped shut. She joked about needing a newer model soon, but her hand stayed on top of it, like she was guarding a door. After that, I watched her stay up late, glasses reflecting lines of color from unfamiliar sites. I caught a real estate forum header twice, our town's zip code glaring in neon. When I asked about it, Amanda waved it off. Just window shopping, some of those houses are wild, right? It could have been nothing. That phrase became my enemy. It could have been nothing, but it kept building. Amanda began picking up her own groceries on random days. Just felt like a walk, she'd explain, pushing aside my questions about dinner. Sometimes I tried to surprise her at lunch, bringing takeout to her usual park bench. She wasn't there. When I called, she sounded distracted, said she was grabbing takeout with the girls. No background noise, no clatter, no voices, just that soft, contained silence people create when they are standing somewhere they are not supposed to be. That weekend, Amanda forgot her purse by the door for a full hour. When she realized, she hustled back in, breathless, checking the seams inside as if expecting something to be missing. Dinner with her felt different. She'd pepper me with questions about my day, but kept her own answers shallow, turning my questions aside with a laugh. That was the first time I stopped feeling suspicious and started feeling managed. I stopped kidding myself. There was a pattern, the shape of absence. I told myself a smart man doesn't jump to conclusions. That's when I called in the favor, a private investigator, ex-cop, friend from before Amanda. Not to catch her. At least that's what I told myself. Just to settle the question, tearing at the edge of my brain. It felt like admitting defeat, but the waiting was worse. Waiting makes a liar out of your own instincts. The report came a week later, early morning, delivered in a plain manila envelope. No dramatic music, no thunder, just the soft scrape of paper against my kitchen table. I ripped the seal, fingers trembling. Photos inside. Amanda, in jeans and boots, slipping in and out of an apartment complex on the other side of town. Sometimes alone, sometimes with a man, older than her, hand pressed at her waist. Another photo with her laughing, her head thrown back, oblivious to the lens. Time-stamped, each image aligning exactly with the late evenings, the missed events, the nights she said she was working late. I sat for a long time at the kitchen table, the sun climbing across the floor, thinking about her purse, the new key, the house listings. It all mapped out neat. That was what hurt. Not just that she lied, but that the lies had architecture. A system, a schedule, a second life that had been running beside mine while I made coffee and paid bills, and asked if she wanted anything from the store. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. If you're invested so far, maybe take a second to subscribe and like. I share stories where slow changes hide big truths. Sometimes the only thing that finally makes a difference is noticing the pattern. That week, I tried inviting Amanda out for dinner to a place she'd picked. She smoothed her hair, smiled as if nothing was amiss, asked about my day, volleyed back every question with practiced ease. Conversation fell into old grooves, but I could tell she was forcing it, hunting for topics that used to come naturally. She laughed too quickly, touched my hand too often, complimented my shirt 3 times. A guilty person doesn't always pull away. Sometimes they lean in so hard, you can feel the performance pressing against your ribs. After dessert, Amanda squeezed my arm and said, with a little too much cheer, "Maybe next time we just have a date night at home, yeah." Her brightness didn't quite reach her eyes. The next morning, I found a real estate brochure tucked under old receipts in her purse. She never left it unattended anymore, but she had been careless for 90 seconds. A little house was circled. The address matched the area from the details in the photos. Price underlined. My mind flew back to the key, the listings, the missed birthdays. A house, not a hotel, not a temporary mistake. A house. There is something uniquely cruel about realizing someone wasn't just cheating. They were planning. Over eggs the next day, I asked about our shared accounts. Amanda brushed it off. I honestly never look, Just use your card most weeks. That afternoon, I checked our bank history. A 5-figure withdrawal I never approved, labeled consultant. I stared at the screen so long the numbers stopped looking like numbers. The withdrawal's date landed within hours of one of Amanda's late meetings. Days later, I searched her dresser for our wedding album, something I'd always find, top right drawer. Gone. Not misplaced. Gone. Where's our album? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. She looked up from her phone, smile soft but alert. Moved it when I cleaned up last week. You're getting paranoid, Steve. Her voice was velvet, hands light on my arm. You know I'd tell you if something was wrong. The sentence sat between us like glass. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she needed me to believe she believed it. Still, I couldn't stop myself from quietly following one afternoon. Amanda left for a work dinner. I waited 20 minutes, then tailed her out of town, stopping when she parked at the apartment from the photos. She fished out the gold key, let herself in. No hesitation, no knocking, no pause. Through the window, 2 shadows merged, her and him. I waited in the car, counting breaths, holding myself still. The rain had started by then, soft at first, then harder, tapping against the windshield like impatient fingers. A normal man might have stormed the door. I wanted to. I pictured it. I pictured her face. His. The shouting. The shock. The pathetic scramble for explanations. But something colder held me in place. I had spent years watching people steal from stores and swear they were innocent, while the merchandise was still under their coat. The first story is never the real story. So I waited. That night, Amanda was almost frantic in her affection, fussing over me, brewing tea, fingers gripping my shoulder as if to anchor herself. I watched her, searching for something real beneath the show. She suggested we take a weekend trip, just the 2 of us. I said work was busy. The letdown flickered across her face, gone in a heartbeat. A week passed, the tension like static under my skin. I asked again about small details. Amanda's explanations only grew more tangled. A payroll deadline one night, the next night, helping a friend move. I wound up calling her office under a fake name. Amanda's boss said she'd left early that afternoon. Amanda claimed she'd stayed late. That was the moment I stopped hoping for a misunderstanding. I started cataloging every missing hour, every quick change of subject, every new excuse for not making family plans. Then came the second PI report. Amanda with the same man at a bank, signing papers side by side. Later unloading boxes at the apartment, their hands brushing, smiles unguarded. The dates overlapped perfectly with Amanda's absences. That was when I felt a subtle break inside. Not anger yet, just the cool efficiency of someone who's been lied to too often. Checking our finances, I found more withdrawals, labeled consultant fees, all tracked to Amanda's cards. It didn't take a genius to realize the deposits matched a down payment on the house from the booklet. Combined with the new key, it was enough. But the part that stayed with me was smaller. One of the photos showed Amanda carrying a framed picture into the apartment. At first I thought it was art. Then I zoomed in. It was from a trip we took 6 years earlier. A mountain overlook. Amanda laughing with her hair in her face. My shoulder barely visible at the edge of the frame, cropped almost completely out. She hadn't just taken our money. She had taken our memories and edited me out. Amanda's mood changed. She grew distracted, nervous if I was near her phone or laptop. She'd fumble if I entered a room too quietly. One morning when I asked about her new job opening, Amanda named a wrong street, then laughed it off. Sometimes she was cold, sometimes desperately affectionate, clinging one night, shrinking the next. Our bed felt wide as an ocean. She'd brush my hair, whisper I'm still here, but it sounded like a question. I waited for the moment when the truth would finally break the surface. Late one rainy night, I found Amanda weeping quietly in the living room. The television was on mute. Blue light moved across her face. For a second, she looked like the woman I married. Small, tired, scared. I sat beside her asking gently if she was happy. She stifled a sob. Just tired. Stressed. You know you're the only one who understands me. I held her, but her words were flat, memorized. I wanted to ask about the apartment, the money, the new key. I wanted to ask if she cried after leaving him too, or if she saved her sadness for the house where I still believed in her. I said nothing. That week, Amanda forgot to lock her phone. I saw messages, none baldly incriminating. But there was a pattern. In-jokes, coded emojis, a daily flow of misuse spun like knots. A calendar reminder caught my eye before the screen went dark. Final walkthrough, no name. No location. Just 2 words. But by then, 2 words were enough. I started sleeping at the edge of the bed. Amanda noticed my distance. She suggested counseling or a trip away. I said yes, but never made arrangements. She tried to woo me back, packed my lunches, bought my favorite beer, cooked the meals she'd reserved for anniversaries. Each gift felt more like an apology than an act of love. I mentioned an upcoming security conference in the city. Amanda's smile stuttered. "You don't need to go, do you?" she said, too quick, too sweet. I looked at her then, really looked, and I understood that she wasn't afraid of losing me. Not yet. She was afraid of being found out before she was ready. The charade intensified. The old jokes, the easy routines all waited now. Each errand loaded with unsaid questions. My voice shrank. Hers filled the silence with stories, her eyes nervously searching my face. Then finally, I found the last piece. Amanda's key to the new house, zipped into a deep pocket of her bag while she thought I was in the shower. Her initials were there, interlocked with another's, newly cut and shining. An M, Amanda and Michael. Not Jen. Not work. Not stress. Not a misunderstanding. That made it real. All of it. I stood there with the key in my palm, water still running in the bathroom so she would think I was inside. For nearly a minute, I didn't move. The key was warm from her bag. That tiny warmth made me angrier than the photos had, because it felt alive, like the secret had been sitting in my hand the whole time, breathing. But I didn't storm into a fight. No raised voices. No ultimatums in the kitchen. Instead, I waited. I made copies of everything. Photos, bank statements, property records, messages, dates, withdrawals, the deed. I spoke to an attorney. I changed passwords. I separated what I could. And then I did the one thing Amanda never expected from me. I let her keep thinking she was ahead. Late one afternoon, I drove to the apartment, parked nearby, and waited until Amanda and the man returned, laughing, their hands entwined. Michael was taller than I expected. Gray at the temples, expensive watch, the sort of man who looked practiced at seeming harmless. Amanda leaned into him with a kind of ease I hadn't seen in my own kitchen for months. That was the final insult. Not the sex. Not even the money. The ease. I walked up, documents in hand. Photos, bank statements, the deed with both their names. Neighbors hovered in their doorways, pretending not to watch. Amanda opened the door, eyes wide, her mask falling by degrees. "Steve, oh God, what are you?" I handed her the packet. Quietly went down each point. The withdrawals, the second key, the house, the time-stamped photos. Her replies tripped over one another, at first denial, then pleading, then explaining. Not angry, not defiant, just soft excuses unwinding in the same careful tone she'd used on me for months. "Steve, listen, this isn't what you think. I needed to feel something again. I was going to tell you, please, can we talk about this somewhere else?" I looked behind her. Michael had stepped back. Not toward her. Away from her. That told me a lot. Amanda's fingers reached for me, but I didn't move. I told her as levelly as I could that we'd be dividing our assets. That the money was theft. That the trust was done. Her face crumpled, but the words didn't stop. Explanations. Rationalizations. Each softer than the last. She said she got scared. She said she felt invisible. She said she didn't know how to stop. She said the house wasn't meant to hurt me. That one almost made me laugh. A house with another man wasn't meant to hurt me. A bank account drained in secret wasn't meant to hurt me. A key with their initials on it wasn't meant to hurt me. I left her standing in that doorway, neighbors watching, voice measured. At home, Amanda made calls, left messages, sent texts, tried to apologize. Each new attempt more tangled, more desperate. I read them, then stopped replying. She offered to return the money. She explained. She promised counseling. She begged for just one more chance. My answer was each silent day. Over the next month, Amanda's efforts ebbed. each message a little emptier than the last. She sent a final email, blame, then regret, then a memory from some long-ago road trip, all in the same paragraph. By then, I'd moved out, started a quiet life again. New apartment, new mug, old routines. The fridge still hums in the morning, and I let it. Some sounds don't feel lonely anymore. Some sounds feel honest. One day, her last message blinked on the screen, her words unraveling, hope desperate and unfinished. I deleted it unread. And if you've listened this far, maybe hit follow for more stories where the truth is something you can only see in the corner of your eye, until one detail too many brings it into focus. Because sometimes the loudest confession isn't a message, a photo, or a key. Sometimes it's the empty chair across from you, and realizing you finally prefer it that way.